Hey Lee, my name's Amelia
Hi,
and I present for Kerrang Radio.
how you
Hello.
doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good, for someone who's been strapped to a chair for a few hours, just talking
That
about.
sounds a bit scary. Strapped to a chair for
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I don't think the ropes were necessary, but anyway.
The first thing I have to ask you is, did you think when you were at film school that you'd be someone to bring the Wolfman story to a new audience?
No, when I was at film school, I didn't think that I'd be working in a sandwich shop. I was thinking like, I was wondering what I was going to be doing. Maybe a street sweeper. Who knows? I didn't have any expectations. I remember not being maybe very confident in myself as an artist when I was younger. And I met James Wan at film school. He was someone who was very confident in himself as an artist. And I was fascinated by him on a zoological level. I was like, who are you? Where does all this confidence come from? But then the more time I spent with him, the more I think I learned a lot from him about loving your own work and feeling good about what you were putting out into the world. And so I probably gained a lot of confidence through him.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's what those connections are so good for. Like you learn so much of each other and learn about yourself as well.
Yeah, I mean that's what a good friendship is. It's like you're both forcing the other person to grow a little bit.
Absolutely. Then you
Mm.
grow together as well, and you both learn, develop, learn new stuff about each other, bring different things as well along the
Yeah,
way. And yeah, it's great. I
yeah.
mean, one thing with this film I have to say as well is it's so different. And there's been so
Mm.
many different like interpretations of the Wolfman story. So how do you go about making a new story of something that people already know exists?
Well, it's tough because so many versions of it do exist. So it's to think of a story that hasn't been told while sticking to the original story. You can't go too far afield, or it's not the Wolfman anymore. If I say like, well, I'm going to go so different that he's an underwater creature, I'm not making a Wolfman movie anymore. So I like those sort of challenges where you're working within a box but trying to be original inside that box. And sometimes I think it's harder in my opinion, it's sometimes harder to be original within the confines of commerciality than it is to go crazy and just do something completely because there are no rules and I love those movies, but I can't help but have two things inside me, which is I want to make something unique, but simultaneously I want audiences to go and see it. I want, so it's these two things fighting against each other. And that was really the starting point of how I came up with it. I was like, okay, so what if I just put this movie in the perspective of the person who's changing? How does that feel? What does the world look like when you're changing? What does it sound like when you're changing? And that was it.
That's what you did as well because you invited a lot of new fears and new experiences into this film. Like with Blake, he's changing, like you said, with sound and also sight. But with the sound quality was gorgeous. It was haunting, disturbing. And you worked, of course, with PK Cooker and also Will Files. So what was
Oh
that
yeah.
like, getting the perfect sound?
I am so happy to hear you call those guys out by name. You really, that is, you get a top commendation from me for that one. Well, I love those guys. The sound design is actually my favorite part of filmmaking because it's pure creativity. A lot of times in when you're making a film, it's just pressure. When you're on set, there's the time pressure. There's 100 people standing around. When you're in the sound design, it's just you and a handful of other people in a room. So it was very important to me that the sound of the movie was like an oral assault. And I designed it for movie theaters. We wanted to, as you know, sound technology in movie theaters has come a long way. So you can do things, you can split up the audio and throw it around the room. So we just kind of, I always used to say like, let's treat this one like a Best Buy salesman. It's like, what's the way? If I was trying to sell you speakers, what would we do right now? So we were trying to do that.
Awesome, because those quiet bits are so quiet and the
Yeah.
loud bits are so loud. Those pops of audio, are stunning, stunning.
Oh,
And
that's great.
also, it's so sick. And what you did as well with that brand new fear is there was generational trauma, fear of not bonding with your child, isolation. All of this was packed into this film.
Yeah, and
So
disease as well, like
yeah,
neurological or physical diseases that are breaking you down. All that hopefully is in there too.
Yes, yeah, fear of disease, fear of infection, all of that was in this film. And how important was it to convey those messages as well?
I mean, really important. I think, I noticed with Invisible Man, I noticed how much people grab onto a strong theme if the movie resonates beyond just the shocks. So the horror movie hopefully is delivering all the scares and the tension, but if there's something underneath it, I feel like that's what people walk away with. The shocks they enjoy in the moment, but it's not necessarily what they take out of the theater. And so that was in my mind when I was writing Wolfman. I was thinking, what does this character say to me? And the first thing that presented itself was just, it was a few different things, but it was that idea of like the fear of your own body being the enemy. Like it's one thing if a monster is chasing you, but what if the monster is your own body and you are physically changing? And so that to me was exciting.
And it was great because one of the best things to me about body horror is when the main character is changing, but they don't know what they're changing into.
Right.
That's one of the biggest fears. And we get that in this film. And so, what was it like developing those stages of transformation?
It's great. I mean, my favorite part of writing is not writing. I like, I believe it's called procrastination. But basically, what I do is I'll have my notepad. I always start with a notepad and pen, never with a laptop. And I just start sketching down ideas. I'm listening to a lot of music. I'll usually, before I start writing a film, I'll create a soundtrack. So I'll get a playlist of like 12 to 15 tracks that sort of somehow evoke what the movie is to me emotionally. And I'll just pace around listening to this music. And the music really helps me get into a flow state of like where you're accessing your subconscious. Because we all have a subconscious. And I feel like, I mean, have you ever woken up from a dream and just thought, what the was that? Like, you just go to your mind just goes, well, that's the thing I'm trying to access, but I'm trying to do it while I'm awake. So I would just walk around and like I'm listening to this music and I start sketching down these ideas about like what it could look like, and just this stuff starts pouring out of you. It's really fun, that planning stage, and that's where I do what you talked about. That's where I'm mapping out like, okay, stage one, stage two, and it's an actual. I'm talking about a literal map on the wall of like a chart of stages.
You've got that music as your catalyst to like go from.
Oh
That's
yeah.
awesome. So, so cool.
You have to be careful though with music because sometimes if the song is really good, it Jedi mind tricks you into thinking that what you're writing is really good. When really it's the cure that's good. You're like, yeah,
Yeah,
my
yeah.
writing is not as good as Robert Smith's, but it can Jedi mind trick you. So sometimes you have to turn the music off and just read the script with naked silence and be like, oh, it's not as good as I thought. But yes, I encourage any writer to always be listening to music.
You listen back or you look back and you're like, darn, I'm good.
Yeah,
Whoa.
exactly.
Oh,
No, it
amazing.
happens all the time. It's actually the song that's really good, but I
Sure.
somehow I fold the writing up into the music. Hans Zimmer's doing all the work for me.
Yeah, he's the true hero.
He's the hero here. Yeah.
The other thing as well is, of course, the lodge was such an amazing building, really tight, really trapped, really
Mm.
lived in as well, worn. And I heard that you guys actually built the exterior of the lodge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we shot the film in New Zealand, but it was set in the Pacific Northwest of America. So there's this beautiful landscape, but we couldn't quite find a farmhouse that looked exactly how it would look. So Ruby Mathers, the really talented production designer, she just built it from scratch. So you had the exterior built from scratch and the interior on a soundstage. So she was obsessive about the textures that you mentioned. Like if you opened any drawer in this set, there would be like a notepad with things written on it, old medical bills. Like she made sure that the house actually had a lived in history that you would never see on camera, but it was all there.
That's so cool that those little details were there. But thank you so much. My time is over. It's been an absolute
Thank you.
pleasure talking to you. I can't wait for people to see this film. It's
Oh,
sick. It's so
mate,
good.
thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you too. Really fun. Thank you.
Awesome. Catch you later. Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks,
I like
guys.
your
Bye.
t-shirt. Bye.
Oh, thank you.